It started, as all great horrors often do, with a flicker on a screen. A momentary distortion in the fabric of the digital world that promised more than just a broken pixel. Alex, a restless urban explorer with a camera always poised for the next viral sensation, had seen his fair share of internet oddities, but nothing had ever felt quite so deliberate. He was scrolling through a forgotten corner of the web, a forum dedicated to Google Maps anomalies, when he found it, a series of coordinates, meticulously cataloged by a user named ghost_pixel, leading to a seemingly ordinary, dilapidated house in the middle of nowhere. Yet, the accompanying screenshot was anything but ordinary. He leaned closer to his monitor, the blue light reflecting in his eyes, a half-eaten bag of chips forgotten beside him. The image was grainy, a typical street view capture of a rundown rural dwelling, overgrown with weeds and with a porch that sagged like a tired sigh. But then, as he clicked the provided link, watching the street view load, a glitch rippled across the screen. For a split second, the image warped, and in one of the grimy windows, a face materialized, not human, not animal, but a grotesque, skeletal caricature, its empty eye sockets seeming to bore directly into his soul. Just as quickly, it vanished, replaced by the mundane, static image of the derelict house. A shiver, cold and sharp, traced its way down Alex's spine, a sensation far more profound than the usual caffeine jitters. He refreshed the page then. The street view, over and over, but the face never reappeared. It was a ghost in the machine, a fleeting glimpse of something impossible. His cynical mind tried to rationalize it, a rendering error, a trick of the light, a clever Photoshop hoax by the forum user. But the visceral fear that had seized him, the sudden chill in his apartment despite the summer heat, told a different story. This wasn't just a glitch. It felt like an invitation. He called Chloe, his girlfriend, her pragmatic nature usually a grounding force against his wilder impulses. "You're not going to believe what I just saw," he began, his voice a little too high with excitement and a tremor of unease. He described the flickering image, the skeletal face, the unsettling feeling that lingered. Chloe, an art history student with a healthy dose of superstition, listened intently, her usual skepticism tinged with a growing fascination. "A digital haunting?" she murmured, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "Alex, you spend too much time online." Yet, even as she tried to dismiss it, a seed of curiosity had been planted. Alex then messaged Ben, his best friend and a computer science whiz, sending him the coordinates and the forum link. Ben, usually reserved and meticulous, responded almost immediately. "That's odd," his text read. "The metadata on that image is weird, like really weird. Not a typical compression artifact." This was enough to hook them both. Ben's analytical mind, usually impervious to the supernatural, was intrigued by the technical anomaly. The three of them gathered in Alex's cramped living room later that night, the glow of the monitor casting an eerie blue light on their faces. Alex pulled up the street view again, the image of the house now a familiar, unsettling presence. "See? Nothing now," he said, gesturing. "But I swear it was there. just for a second. Chloe peered at the screen, her brow furrowed. It feels wrong though, doesn't it? Like the air around it is just heavy. Ben, meanwhile, was already typing furiously on his laptop, running diagnostics and examining the raw data. It's not just the image itself, he muttered, more to himself than to them. There's a faint, almost imperceptible audio track embedded in the street view data. Like white noise, but not. He put on his headphones, his face a mask of concentration. A few moments later, he flinched, pulling them off. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice hushed. A whisper, just for a second. Like static, but with a voice. Alex and Chloe exchanged a look. They hadn't heard anything. Ben, however, was visibly shaken. It was like it was trying to say something. Just a jumble of sounds, but I felt it in my teeth. The initial thrill of a viral discovery began to curdle into something colder, something more primal. This wasn't just about clicks anymore. It was about something reaching out from the digital ether, something that shouldn't exist, something that was trying to make itself known. "Okay," Alex said, trying to inject some bravado into his voice. "So we found a weird house with a spooky whisper. Cool, let's find more. If this is a real phenomenon, we could be onto something huge." But even as he spoke, the thought echoed. In his mind, what if something huge finds us first? The night stretched before them, a vast digital ocean waiting to be explored. And somewhere within its depths, something was stirring. Something that had seen them looking back. Asterisk. The initial thrill of discovery quickly morphed into a chilling obsession. What began as a morbid curiosity, a hunt for digital anomalies, soon became a descent into a labyrinth of unsettling discoveries, each one pulling them deeper into a reality, where the lines between the digital and the truly horrifying blurred with terrifying speed. Their digital expedition became a nightly ritual, fueled by energy drinks and a growing sense of dread. Their meticulous cataloging of coordinates led them to increasingly disturbing sights. One evening, Chloe stumbled upon a deserted playground in what appeared to be a forgotten town in rural Ukraine. The street view showed rusted swings swaying gently in a non-existent breeze, a faded slide, and a cracked merry-go-round. As Chloe zoomed in, a faint, almost imperceptible sound began to bleed through her headphones, the distant, echoing laughter of children. It was innocent, playful, yet utterly out of place, and it sent a cold shiver down her spine. "Alex." "Ben, listen to this," she whispered, her voice tight with unease. They put on their shared headphones, and the spectral giggles filled the room, a haunting melody that seemed to even emanate from the very pixels. Next, it was Alex who found it, a remote stretch of highway in the Nevada desert. The street view captured a car, a vintage sedan, perpetually frozen mid-crash, half off the road, its front crumpled against an invisible barrier. Yet, when they cross-referenced it with satellite imagery, there was no wreckage, no sign of an accident. It was as if the Street View camera had captured a moment in time that never truly existed. A phantom crash site imprinted onto the digital landscape. "It's like a bad dream," Alex muttered, his usual bravado replaced by a quiet awe. a snapshot of something that only happened in another dimension. But the most unsettling discovery came from Ben. His program, designed to analyze the metadata of these anomalous images, was running constantly in the background, a silent sentinel sifting through digital noise. One night, a series of alerts flashed across his screen, pointing to a deep, dark cave entrance in Antarctica. When they clicked the street view, the image was almost entirely black, save for a faint, swirling mist at the mouth of the cave. As they tried to pan around, the screen briefly glitched, and for a fraction of a second, a symbol appeared, an intricate, alien design that none of them recognized, yet it filled them with an instinctive, primal dread. It felt ancient, malevolent, and utterly wrong. "This isn't random," Ben declared, his voice tight with a newfound certainty, his fingers flying across his keyboard. "There's a pattern, a digital signature embedded in all of these. It's not a glitch, not a random error. It's deliberate. Like someone or something is weaving them together." He showed them the recurring, non-random patterns in the code, a subtle corruption that linked the disparate anomalies. "They're connected," he explained, pointing to a complex web of data points on his screen, like nodes on a sinister network. Each one is a gateway. As they delved deeper, the psychological strain began to fray their nerves. Alex, once driven by the thrill of viral content, became consumed by the need to understand, to prove what they were seeing was real. He neglected sleep, his eyes bloodshot, his apartment a chaotic mess of empty coffee cups and discarded takeout containers. Chloe, usually the voice of reason, found herself plagued by vivid nightmares, the skeletal face from the first house appearing in her dreams, the children's laughter echoing in the darkness. She started to question her own sanity, the line between reality and the digital abyss blurring into a terrifying smudge. "I can't sleep," Chloe confessed one morning, her voice hoarse. "Every time I close my eyes, I see that house. And I hear those kids laughing. It's not funny anymore, Alex." Alex, irritable from lack of sleep, snapped back. "We're close, Chloe. Don't you feel it? We're on the verge of something incredible." But even his conviction was wavering. Ben, the most sensitive of the trio, suffered the most. He began to hear whispers when he was alone, faint, indistinct voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls of his room. Convinced the glitches were trying to communicate directly with him, he saw fleeting shadows in his peripheral vision. Even when not looking at a screen, dark blurs that darted just beyond his sight. His anxiety spiraled, leading to panic attacks and a desperate need to disconnect, yet an equally powerful urge to uncover the truth. "It's in my head, Alex," Ben mumbled one night, clutching his temples. "I can feel it. It's trying to get in." The arguments grew more frequent, their frayed nerves snapping under the pressure of the unseen. "We need to stop," Chloe pleaded, her voice cracking. "This is too much. It's messing with us." But Alex, gripped by a terrifying obsession, refused. "We can't stop now. We're too deep. Don't you want to know what this is?" Then came the invitation. Ben's program, after days of relentless processing, identified a central nexus point for all the anomalies, the isolated farmstead in rural Oregon, the very first house Alex had found. And within the fragmented metadata of several images, a chilling message was deciphered, pieced together from digital whispers and corrupted code. Flashing on Ben's screen in stark white letters, "We are here, come." The digital abyss wasn't just showing them glimpses anymore. It was calling them. The message, stark and undeniable, hung in the air between them like a death sentence. "We are here, come." It was a direct challenge, an invitation from the digital entity they had inadvertently awakened, or perhaps merely observed. A cold dread settled in Chloe's stomach, but for Alex, it was the ultimate proof. The validation he had craved, even if it meant stepping into the maw of something truly terrifying. He insisted they go, driven by a desperate mix of fear, obsession, and the subtle, insidious influence of the entity that had begun to worm its way into his mind. "Are you insane, Alex?" Chloe's voice was sharp, laced with a fear she no longer bothered to hide. "This is a trap. It's messing with us. It wants us there." She gestured wildly at the glowing screen, where the coordinates of the Oregon farmstead shimmered ominously. Ben, pale and trembling, nodded in agreement. "She's right. Alex, my program. It's showing increased activity around those coordinates. It's like a beacon, a lure." But Alex was beyond reason. His eyes, sunken and bloodshot, held a manic gleam. "Don't you see? This is it. This is what we've been looking for. Proof. We go there, we film it, we expose it, we end this." He was convinced that confronting the source would somehow sever the digital ties that bound them, or perhaps grant him the recognition he believed he deserved. Against their better judgment, swayed by Alex's relentless conviction and a desperate, underlying hope that confronting the source would somehow put an end to their torment, Chloe and Ben reluctantly agreed. The drive to rural Oregon was a blur of nervous silence and unspoken anxieties. The landscape grew increasingly desolate, the towering pines giving way to vast, empty fields under a perpetually overcast sky. Every shadow seemed to lengthen, every distant sound magnified. They drove. For hours, the GPS on Ben's phone, ironically, their only guide, leading them deeper into isolation. The air in the car grew heavy, thick with unspoken dread, punctuated only by their ragged breaths. Finally, as dusk began to paint the sky in bruised purples and grays, they saw it. The farmstead. It looked exactly as it did on Street View, dilapidated, isolated, a skeletal silhouette against the fading light. The house stood with an unsettling, almost too perfect stillness, as if time itself had paused around it. No birds sang, no wind rustled the dead leaves in the yard. Just an oppressive, heavy silence died as they stepped out of the car. The silence deepened, pressing in on them. The air grew colder, an unnatural chill that bit at their exposed skin. Alex, still clinging to his bravado, pulled out his camera, but his hands trembled slightly. "All right," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Let's do this." They approached the house, each step feeling like a march towards an inevitable doom. The porch creaked ominously under their weight, a mournful groan in the oppressive quiet. The moment they crossed the threshold, their world erupted into digital chaos. Their phones, still clutched in their hands, began to glitch violently. Screens flickered erratically, displaying corrupted images of the skeletal figure they had seen in the street view. Static filled their headphones, morphing into a cacophony of whispers, screams, and the distorted, echoing laughter of children. The air in the house grew impossibly cold, and a low, guttural hum vibrated through the floorboards, a sound that seemed to originate from everywhere and nowhere at once. The Glitch Weaver was making its presence known. It didn't physically attack, but its presence was a palpable, suffocating force. It projected terrifying, personalized illusions, twisting their deepest fears into grotesque realities. Alex, desperate for recognition, saw his online fame dreams morph into a horrifying nightmare. Millions of distorted faces, their eyes empty and mocking, filled his vision, their spectral voices chanting his name, laughing at his terror. "Look at him, the brave explorer. Look how he screams." The voices echoed, tearing at his sanity. Chloe, overwhelmed by the sensory assault, saw the historical art she loved twist into grotesque, animated versions. The serene faces of Renaissance portraits contorted into silent, screaming visages, their eyes weeping black tears. Ancient sculptures writhed on their pedestals, their marble skin cracking to reveal pulsating, unseen organs. The beauty she cherished became a canvas for unimaginable horror, each masterpiece a silent testament to her encroaching madness. Ben, the most vulnerable to the digital assault, was overwhelmed by a torrent of corrupted code and data. His mind, the very foundation of his being, felt like it was being forcefully invaded. The entity was attempting to upload itself into his consciousness, flooding his senses with raw, agonizing information. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his head, a guttural scream tearing from his throat. "It's inside. It's trying to get in. Disconnect. We have to disconnect." His words, a desperate plea amidst the chaos, pierced through the illusions. They realized the entity fed on their fear, but more importantly, on their connection to technology. This was its conduit, its gateway. In a moment of shared, primal understanding, Alex and Chloe reacted. They smashed their phones against the floor, the screens shattering, the static dying down to a faint hiss. They ripped out their headphones, tearing the wires, cutting the last direct links. The illusions flickered, weakened, but did not vanish entirely. The house itself seemed to shift, doors appearing and disappearing, walls distorting and reforming, a physical manifestation of the digital corruption. They had to escape, not just the house, but the digital abyss that had followed them into reality. They ran not just from the crumbling farmstead, but from the very edges of their sanity. The escape was a blur of adrenaline and primal terror, a desperate scramble through shifting walls and phantom doorways, each step a gamble against the entity's pervasive influence. They burst out into the cool night air, gasping, their lungs burning. The silence of the Oregon wilderness, a sudden jarring relief after the cacophony of digital screams. They didn't look back, didn't dare to. They drove for hours, the battered car their only sanctuary, the silence within the vehicle punctuated only by their ragged breaths and the frantic thumping of their hearts. The sun began to creep over the horizon, painting the sky in a soft, deceptive glow, but it brought no comfort. They were shaken, traumatized, their minds reeling from the horrors they had witnessed, the terrors they had felt within their very souls. When they finally pulled into a small, anonymous town, the first sign of civilization they'd seen in hours, they were ghosts of their former selves. They found a cheap motel, its fluorescent lights a harsh contrast to the digital darkness. They had just escaped. They didn't speak of what had happened, not explicitly. The words felt too fragile, too inadequate to describe the unspeakable. Instead, they made a silent pact, an unspoken agreement to bury the experience, to destroy all their research, all the digital evidence, as if by erasing the proof, they could erase the memory. They meticulously wiped hard drives, deleted forum accounts, and even smashed their laptops, severing every possible digital tie to the nightmare. Returning to their city lives was like stepping back into a dream, a world that felt both familiar and utterly alien. Alex, once consumed by the chase for viral content, had given up urban exploration entirely. His camera, once an extension of his arm, now lay forgotten in a dusty corner. He avoided screens, the thought of a flickering pixel or a distorted image, sending a jolt of panic through him. He was quieter, more withdrawn, haunted by the echoes of phantom laughter and the chilling whispers that sometimes seemed to brush against his ear in the dead of night. Chloe, once a vibrant and curious art history student, now found solace only in the tangible. She spent hours in museums, tracing the lines of ancient sculptures, finding comfort in the solid, unchanging nature of physical art, far removed from the digital distortions she had witnessed. She avoided her phone, her laptop, even the television, preferring the quiet solitude of books in the real world. The nightmares, though less frequent, still came, twisting familiar faces into the skeletal visage of the glitch weaver, reminding her that escape was only ever temporary. Ben, the most deeply affected, struggled the most. The entity's attempt to upload itself into his mind had left him with severe anxiety and a persistent sense of unease. He still heard faint auditory delusions, the ghost of corrupted code whispering just beneath the surface of his thoughts. He became withdrawn, his once sharp mind now prone to moments of profound disorientation. He compulsively deleted data, not just his own, but anything digital he could get his hands on, convinced that the entity was still trying to find a way back in through any available connection. He was slowly recovering, but the scars were deep, etched not on his skin, but on his very being. Months passed. The seasons changed. Life outwardly had seemingly returned to normal. They rarely spoke of the farmstead, or the glitches, or the entity. It was an unspoken wound, a shared trauma, that bound them in a silent, chilling understanding. They tried to forget, to move on, to convince themselves it was just a nightmare, a collective hallucination brought on by stress and sleep deprivation. But deep down they knew. One quiet evening, Alex, restless and unable to sleep, found himself idly browsing a news site on an old non-smart tablet he had bought specifically to avoid the smart device anxieties. He scrolled through headlines, trying to distract himself, when an article popped up. Its title innocuous enough: Strange Digital Anomalies Reported Across the Globe. His blood ran cold. The article detailed a strange new trend: people reporting glitches in their everyday digital lives. A brief, inexplicable flicker on a smart TV screen. A distorted face appearing for a split second in a video call before vanishing. A GPS navigation system leading drivers to non-existent, abandoned roads, eerily similar to the highway anomaly they had discovered. It was spreading. Alex scrolled down to the comment section, his heart pounding in his chest, a sickening sense of dread washing over him. The first comment, posted anonymously, simply read, "It's spreading, and it's learning to use new maps." Below it, another comment with a user icon that looked eerily like a distorted, pixelated version of Ben's old profile picture replied, "You can run, but you can't log out." Alex dropped the tablet, its screen briefly showing a faint, almost imperceptible static pattern, a ghost of the Glitch Weaver's signature, before returning to the news article. He looked around his apartment, the familiar walls suddenly feeling thin, transparent. He felt a chilling presence, as if something was watching him, not from a screen, but through the very pixels of his life, waiting for the next connection, waiting for them all. The digital abyss wasn't confined to Google Maps anymore. It was everywhere now, and it had found its way home.